In this video I'll explain to you the cuts in the Bolognese tradition. Before we get into the actual cutting actions, we need to look at some of the terminology. The first thing we need to know is a division to your sword hand side and to your backhand side. The central line, you can imagine, is right here on top of your sword hand side thigh, going upwards like this. To the outside is the sword hand side, and to the inside is the backhand side. For a right-hander, this would be right side and left side. This is important because it determines the side from which the cut originates. And if the cuts are originating from the right side or the sword hand side, they are called mandritto. If the cuts are originating from the backhand side, they are called roverso. There are slightly different spellings in the various treatises about roverso. It can also be riverso or rovescio. It means the same thing. The plural is roversi, the backhand side cuts, and mandritti, the sword hand side cuts. Now, once we know this, we can also add the lines in which the cuts travel. If they are coming directly downwards, vertically down, they are called fendente. If they are done diagonally down, they are called squalembrato. If they are done horizontally, they are called tondo. If they are diagonally rising, they are called ridoppio. The plural of the cuts would be fendenti, squalembrati, tondi, and ridoppi. Now, we can of course do this so that they originate from both sides, and therefore we can add to the name the mandritto and the roverso accordingly. So going through all of these strikes, first on the right side we have fendente mandritto on the vertical line, then on the diagonal line mandritto squalembrato, then on the horizontal line mandritto tondo, and finally on the rising line mandritto ridoppio. When I talk about the mandritto tondo, I often just say dritto tondo, but it means exactly the same thing. Now, on the backhand side, we have roverso fendente, roverso squalembrato, roverso tondo, and finally roverso ridoppio. Now, all of these cuts can be done in two different ways, especially the ones that are falling downwards, the squalembri or squalembrati. You can either do them so that your point stays in line after the cut, or you can let the point travel all the way through into a low guard. If you leave the point in line, they are called mezzi colpi, or singular mezzo colpo, which means a half strike. If you let the point go all the way through, it is called a colpo intero, which means a full strike. From here also comes the terminology of the mezzo tempo. If you are throwing a half strike, you're also executing a half tempo. Okay, so if you look at, for example, the mandritto squalembrato, you can do it as a half strike, this way, always leaving the point in line. Or you can throw it all the way down into porta di ferro larga, and then it becomes a full strike. Same with the roversi, half strike, full strike. Now that we have looked at the lines of the cuts, we need to actually see how to throw these cuts, how to execute them. We'll start with the easiest cuts. We'll start with the mandritto squalembrato and the roverso squalembrato. Throwing the mandritto squalembrato, I suggest you start with your left foot forward in coda longa stretta. From here, lift your hand up into guardia al corno, let the point drop and your sword basically turn around into guardia alta, and from there you cut with a step into porta di ferro alta or porta di ferro stretta. Now, here you see how the guards actually outline this action of throwing this cut. Of course, you do not have to do it this slowly and like stopping in each guard. You can use the guards to analyze your movement. But when you get the idea, it should be very relaxed, where you just throw the strike like this. Like so. And when you're returning backwards, I have shown this in other videos as well, but you basically already perform a roverso when you're stepping backwards. And you can practice your roversi then, so this becomes very efficient. Because stepping forwards you do a mandrito, and then returning you throw a roverso. Now here you have a few options. You can either bring the sword on top of your left shoulder and then just cut the roverso squalenbrata from there. Or what you can do is, after the first cut, let the point drop to your outside and throw the roverso from there. So mandrito, roverso, mandrito, roverso, mandrito, roverso, and so on. So, what about throwing the other strikes? The squalenbrati are the easiest. The fendenti you can basically throw exactly in the same way. It is just a little bit harder to find the vertically downwards line with your cuts. These cuts are not so often done, but it's good to practice them anyway. And they are the easiest if you just simply find yourself in a position of guardia alta, and from there you just drop the sword down from here. This is the place where it is most often used. But you can practice in the same exercise we did before. You can just exchange all the squalenbrati into fendenti. The tondi are easy as well, and you can again just exchange basically. So you can start by throwing a mandrito tondo and then a roverso tondo as you come back. This way. But if you want to throw the ridoppi, the rising cuts, they need to be prepared or executed slightly differently. Because instead of lifting your hand up and letting the sword go around, what you need to do is pick the point up, drop it, and then let the sword go around. So it is different. It's good to practice this not in a slightly different exercise where you just concentrate on one cut, because it's slightly harder to do. So, starting here in coda longa stretta with the left foot forward, I pick the point up, let it fall behind me, and just go around. And then lifting the hand as the strike happens, and then just following with the body. This is very important. The body needs to follow the sword. Here. Like this. If you want to, you can exaggerate the whole thing. Basically go all the way into coda longa distesa and cut up from there. So you get a really big action this way. Or you can do it more from the wrist, like this. Same from the other side. You can start in porta di ferro stretta with a right lead. You pick the point up, let it fall backwards, and then just follow with a pass when the sword goes forward. Remember to lift the hand up. And again, here. And again, here. It's best to practice to do the cuts from both sides. Just from the hand, like this. You don't need to get all the power like this behind the cut. It's not necessary. It just makes the whole action unsafe. Now the easiest way to practice these cuts is to do the cuts with passing footwork. But you need to practice how to do the cuts with other kinds of footwork as well. And there's basically 4 ways in which I suggest you practice these cuts. The first one, of course, being the pass. And if you're cutting from the right side, this is typical to other like longsword and other arts as well. When you're cutting from the right side, you're cutting a mandrito. You pass with the right foot. So as we did before, like this. And when you're cutting from the left side, you pass with the left. This is the basics. This is where it starts from. You can practice going forwards twice, like this. 1, 2. Or you can do as before, you go forwards, and then you go backwards. Forwards, and backwards. And forwards, and backwards. Or twice forwards, this way, and twice backwards. And so on. Then you can also change, so that you're stepping with the left foot when you're cutting from the right side. You can start with the right lead like this, and simply pass with the left as you try to cut this way. And if you are drawing a reverso, you could start it so that you pass with the right foot as you do it. So here, and try to cut like this. Let's get to practice all kinds of variations. The third one is you just do a short lunge. So starting from here, you pick the sword up and you cut with a lunge. So you just extend the right foot forwards as the cut happens. Like that. And the last way, the fourth one, is to first bring the back foot up, like a chasing step, when you're preparing the action. So if I want to cut a mandrito, I bring the back foot up as I lift the sword hand up. And from there, I make a step forwards, which can be long, it can be short, it depends on the situation. So, preparing like this, and then striking from there. 1, 2. 1, 2. And again. 1, 2. So, practicing all these 4 ways is very important. But before I let you loose with your practice of these cuts, there are a few extra cuts I want to describe. Firstly, you can do basically any of these cuts with the false edge of the sword. You just add falso into the name of the cut, and suddenly it's done with the false edge. You can do your mandrito squalembrato with the false edge like this, just throwing it down. Or even a reverso squalembrato. Or you can throw your mandrito tondo with the false edge like this. Or reverso tondo like that. But there are 3 especially important falso cuts, of which basically have their own names. Those are the rising ones. Diagonally from the left, diagonally from the right, and even straight up. If you're doing the falso from your left side, diagonally up, it's called a falso manco. If you do it from your right side, it is called a falso dritto. If you do it directly upwards, it's called a montante. These are important to remember because these falsi are, especially the diagonal ones, they're also used as parries. The most important of them is the falso manco, and whenever you find yourself in por perifero larga, your basic parry from here is just to bring the sword up this way. And that's a falso manco. So often what you'll see is, for example, you can do an invitation by cutting, opening yourself up slightly, and when your opponent attacks, you parry with the falso manco and then follow with some other action. You can also ruin your opponent's hands with these cuts. So whenever you're down here, you can go straight up, cutting them to the hand. Or from here, you go to the hand and you continue fighting from there. So it's a good preparation like that. Also, what you can do is beat their sword. If the sword is with the point towards you, with the false edge, you can beat it aside and then strike from either side, which is basically very close to the parry. Sometimes when you parry a thrust, it doesn't even have to be really a strike, but it's still called a falso. An action like this, which might be enough to parry a thrust, and then you can follow from there. Sometimes also in the Bolognese you'll find thrusts that are done in the way of a falso. They're called punta in falso or punta in falsata, because when you think about it, this false edge cut rising from down here, it's very close to a thrust. The difference is very minor. We have 2 more that I want to show you and you to learn. They are the cuts that are done just from the wrist. The first one of them is the tramazzone. When I have my arm extended like this, I can simply drop the point down and wheel it around this way. Usually this is a mandritto. It's the easiest way to do. From porta di ferro stretta, I drop it and let it go around like this. Notice how I'm doing it basically from the wrist. I can lose this glove, so it's easier to see as from the wrist. I keep the elbow so that it's alive and not locked straight, because that'd be damaging, but primarily from the wrist. The other one is what I call the mulinetto. Some people call it tramazzone as well, just simply done on the outside. I call it a mulinetto after what is described in the anonymous Bolognese. And this is done by dropping the point to the outside and then just wheeling the sword around. Usually as a reverse, like this. Notice I'm letting the elbow bend quite a bit. That is because I'm doing this slowly now, and it's easier to execute this way. If I try to force it from the wrist, I easily start to open the hand, and it's not a good idea to open the hand. Usually I suggest rather let your elbow bend a bit than do the cut so that you will be forced to open your hand, because if you're just holding the sword like this, the grip is not very secure. But this said, when you're doing this tramazzone as a redoubling, so you're redoubling a strike, you're doing 2 strikes in one go, then it happens often so fast that even the mulinetto can be done basically from the wrist. So if I have attacked with a strike and I just redouble it with another one, it happens so quickly that basically there is no much pain in the elbow. The same can of course be done with the tramazzone, and it's just there. So, a brief recap on the cuts with the true edge. If the cuts originate from the sword hand side, they're called mandritto. If they originate from the backhand side, they're called rovers. If the cuts end with the point in line, they're called half strikes, mezzicolpi. Or if they end with the point offline, they're called full strikes, colpi interi. And there are 4 different lines in which these cuts can be executed. Vertically down, fendente, diagonally down, squalembrato, horizontally, tondo, and rising diagonally, ridotto. And you have 4 basic ways of stepping as you do the cuts. You can pass with the sword hand side, or you can pass with the other foot, or you can do a lunging step, or you can bring the back foot up and then step forwards. And then just a few final words about these cuts. I want to give you an idea of how to easily start practicing all of these things. There's quite a bit of terminology, and I suggest reading about these things. Read the translations of the material that is available, or if you can't read Italian, then no problem, you can read all the original texts. If you're looking for the text, you can go to my website, marozzo.com, and in there you'll find the resources page. The resources page is full of links to translations, either ones that are freely available online or to translations that are published as books, and you can buy them from bookstores online or whatever. But before I'll unleash you to your practice of these cuts, I want to give you a basic idea of something easy to do at first, and so that you're not overwhelmed by all of these things. Firstly, remember from the guards that the 2 most important ones are, you can start with our right foot lead, the one on the outside, which is the coda longa stretta, and the one on the inside, which is the porta di ferro stretta. Incidentally, this just turning between these 2 guards is an important action, and it's called the mezza volta di mano, the half turn of the hand. And if you want to think of it that way, your basic cuts include this mezza volta, because when you're cutting from your right side, you can be cutting from your from coda longa. I'm now starting with the left lead, and as you cut, you'll cut through into porta di ferro, so you have effectively done a mezza volta di mano. So you'll learn that as well. Your most important step is the passing step. You can practice it forwards and backwards. It's important to be able to execute cuts when retreating as well. It's really a part of the Bolognese style. So here you have all the most important things. You have the two guards, the coda longa and porta di ferro. You have the two cuts, which are the mandrita and the roverso. And you have the two steps, which is the pass forward and the pass back. If you put these together, you will get the exercise that I have shown in previous videos as well, where you start with the left lead and you cut a mandrito passing forward and you cut a roverso passing back. And I suggest starting with this. And when it's going nicely, you can add the other cuts and add other things and separate out the footwork and what have you. But first, get comfortable with that exercise. And finally, I'll just show you that if you think about this exercise closely and you use all the things that you have already learned, you will notice that not only will you start in coda longa stretta, but as you cut, you go through guardia al corno, guardia alta, and then you execute basically also a mezza volta as you reach the porta di ferro stretta. And when you're returning, if you do it from the outside, you will basically execute a mulinetto as you're going backwards. So you have all of these things that you're practicing in this one exercise. And it's pretty cool. Forwards, backwards. Mandrito, roverso. Mandrito, roverso. Mandrito, roverso. Porta di ferro, coda longa. Porta di ferro, coda longa. And once more from the front. Mandrito, roverso. Mandrito, roverso. Passing forward, passing back. Passing forward, passing back. And also practicing the mulinetti as you return. Coda longa, porta di ferro, coda longa, porta